You walk into a room you've never been in. New apartment, new office, somewhere you've genuinely never set foot. And for 2 or 3 seconds, you're certain that you've stood in this exact spot before. Same light, same angle, maybe even the same conversation happening. Then it passes, and you're left standing there, slightly unsettled by your own memory. This is déjà vu, and it happens to somewhere between 6 and 7 out of every 10 people at some point in their lives. Which raises an obvious question. What is your brain actually doing when it convinces you for a moment that the present is a repeat? The folk explanations write themselves: a glimpse of a past life, a flash of psychic premonition, a glitch in some simulation you're supposedly living inside. They're appealing because the feeling itself is so specific and so certain, it doesn't feel like a guess. It feels like a fact you already knew, but certainty isn't evidence. Plenty of things feel like facts and turn out to be reconstructions. And déjà vu, it turns out, sits squarely inside that category, not outside it. A major review by psychologist Alan Brown in 2003 pulled together decades of research on déjà vu and found something clarifying. There isn't one agreed mechanism. There are 3 competing families of explanation, one rooted in memory, one in attention, one in neurology, and each has real evidence behind it. This episode isn't going to pretend one of them has won, because, as of now, none of them has. That's not a failure of the science. Genuinely difficult phenomena that last 2 seconds and can't be triggered on demand are hard to pin down. It's honesty about where the evidence currently stands. The memory-based account, championed by researcher Cleary, proposes that déjà vu happens when a new scene shares a spatial layout with something you've genuinely seen before. A similar furniture arrangement, a similar doorway position, without you consciously recalling the earlier scene at all. In her experiments, she was able to reliably trigger déjà vu-like feelings in a lab by showing people virtual scenes that quietly mirrored the layout of scenes they'd viewed earlier, even when participants had no idea the two were connected. There's a second account, too, rooted in attention rather than memory. The idea that your brain briefly processes a scene through 2 slightly separate channels, one a fraction of a second behind the other. And when the delayed channel catches up, it gets misread as a completely separate memory of something already experienced. It's a much harder theory to test directly, but it remains part of the same live debate Brown's review describes. The third, neurological account comes from an unlikely source. People with epilepsy. Some patients experience déjà vu as a warning sign, an aura right before a seizure originating in the temporal lobe, specifically a region called the rhinal cortex, heavily involved in signaling familiarity. That's given researchers a rare direct window into brain activity during the sensation, and it strongly implicates the familiarity system misfiring. Even if healthy, everyday déjà vu may not work in exactly the same way. That's an important caveat worth repeating. The clearest neurological evidence comes from a clinical population having a genuinely different experience than a healthy person's brief, mild déjà vu. Extending it directly to everyday déjà vu is a reasonable hypothesis, not a settled fact. What is better established is who experiences it more. Déjà vu is more common in younger adults and tends to fade in frequency with age. And it's slightly more common in people who travel frequently or recall their dreams often. patterns that fit a memory-based explanation better than a supernatural one, though they don't settle the debate outright. So here's what the evidence taken together actually supports. Déjà vu is very likely your brain's familiarity system firing without a matching, retrievable memory attached to it. A signal without a source. Not one confirmed pathway, but several plausible ones pointing in the same general direction. This is a memory system quirk, not a paranormal event, not a glitch in reality itself. Just a familiarity alarm going off with nothing behind it that you can consciously find. Next time it happens, you can actually use it. Instead of sitting with the eeriness, try to name what specifically feels familiar. The layout of the room, the angle of the light, a phrase someone just said. Sometimes you'll land on a genuine, forgotten resemblance. Sometimes you won't. Either way, you're not remembering the future. You're watching your memory system reach for a match it can't quite complete in real time. That flash of certainty was real. What it was certain about probably wasn't. Once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere.